Hi, I'm Amy Corr, Chief Brokerage Officer of At Properties Christie's International Real Estate, and you're listening to Corr Values, a podcast where we talk about real estate and real life. As someone who's worn many hats, agent, managing broker, coach, executive, and mom, I know the hustle is real. So I'm sitting down with industry leaders and entrepreneurs to uncover the stories, strategies, and values that fuel real success. From being the CEO of your own business to figuring out how to show up for your people, we're covering it all. You may recognize today's guest as the first female broker on Million Dollar Listing New York, but her story goes way beyond the screen. Kirsten Jordan is a powerhouse agent who leads a top-producing team in New York City. In this episode, she shares how she broke into the business, what goes on behind the scenes of a hit TV show, and what it takes to succeed in one of the world's most competitive real estate markets. We also dig into the competitive mindset that she developed as an all-American race walker and learn the number one thing that changed her life as a working mom. So whether you're looking to break into the luxury market or hear about the realities of reality TV, this one's for you. All right, Kirsten Jordan, welcome to Corr Values. I'm so excited to have you. I'm very excited. I was a very big Million Dollar Listing fan, so excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I am very thrilled to be here.
Yay. All right, well, let's dive right in because you have built an incredibly successful career in probably one of the world's most competitive real estate markets, New York City. Take us back to the beginning. How did you get into the business?
I got into the business of real estate because I had been living in Italy after college. I moved to Milan and I lived in Milan for 2 years. And while I was living in Milan, I got a job. I didn't have real working papers. And so I, through a series of kind of odd jobs and waiting tables and everything, I had a connection to a group where I basically did their sales for them it was basically licensing sales for greeting cards and wrapping paper. So this company that I worked for, they made the designs, and then we did the licensing of these designs to various groups. And they really only hired me because of the fact that I spoke Italian and still speak Italian, but I spoke enough Italian that I was able to kind of get through this whole process and help the owner who didn't speak Italian that was doing the sales translate through these meetings. And so I was living there and had this job for about 1.5 years. And then basically, like, you don't make any money in Europe, especially when you're in your early 20s and no matter what you're doing. So at some point it was like, you know what, I think I probably just need to go home. But I love the sales aspect of things. And so I decided, listen, I love this so much, but I want to do sales. And my stepfather was like, if you want to sell something, make sure that you pick something that's a big ticket item to sell, because all you have to do is sell not that many of these things and then you get paid really well. So that was basically what I did. I decided to get into real estate. And that was the kind of thing that just made a lot of sense for me. And so I started basically as an apprentice. I was on a team for about, I think it was like 6 or 7 months before I switched to really truly being an assistant. And that was a 5-year position where I really was just the right hand to this woman. And just, we really just worked on everything side by side together. And it was great. It was like an amazing opportunity for me. And then from there, I got married during that time, and then it came time to start my family. And so it made more sense to kind of go out on my own. But from there, I had gotten a really great foundation for the business. And that's kind of where I started to kind of explore other ways of kind of being in it without necessarily working super directly for somebody on the 24/7 basis.
Mm-hmm. I love that too, because you've got a team now. So I think what a better, no better way to learn than kind of being a team member or an assistant. And then, as you're evolving your career, I think mentorship is so key too. I think it allows agents to develop and become more successful quicker because you're really seeing somebody who's already mastered it, and you can kind of fast track it. So
Yeah. And the volume of transactions was key, because the truth is it, at the beginning, especially in New York, it's very hard to start doing volume of transactions.
I bet it would be so difficult. Do most people have like a mentorship role, or how do most people get started in New York? I feel like it would be really tough.
There's a lot of teams in New York City, real estate teams, and I think a lot of agents will like join a team, thinking that's going to get them some volume. I'm not, I don't know if what your thoughts are on teams, but a lot of teams maybe don't have that infrastructure to be able to truly give mentorship or even just apprenticeship or the right opportunities to somebody who just joins a team loosely as a, kind of just to get into the business and learn. So it's super hard because the truth is like that one-on-one thing that I had going was the best because she got to, basically rely on me. It was a true like transactional relationship. Like I did the things she needed and didn't want to do. There was a very, very clear, structure of compensation. There was a small base salary included in that. And so it really was really good for me who, I got into the business at 24 years old. I couldn't just, live with no income for a year, running around. It was really like, or a couple of years until you get going. So it was for me, that was really, really great. Now that I have a team, I would say still my greatest challenge is trying to figure out how to structure the team so that if we do take on anybody who's new, which at this point, like I'm not even really able to do, that we have something for them specifically to do, because otherwise those relationships don't really work out effectively.
Yeah.
Because the world, I think a lot of agents come to me asking me, if I could be a mentor or if I can help them find a mentorship relationship. And the reality is that, true mentorship in this business doesn't really come for free. So you really do need to decide what value you're going to add for that mentor, unless you want to meet up with them for coffee like once a year. Because if they're any good at what they're doing, they won't have time for you unless you're really providing value for them.
I love that. I really love that you said that, because I think over the last 10 years in particular, we're in the Chicago market, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but teams have really evolved. Like 10 years ago, we have probably a fraction of the amount of sort of quote unquote teams that we have now. And a lot of them are defunct for exactly that reason, right? Because I think there's mismatched expectations. So I love that you really say that if you're looking for that mentorship, it is a give and take, and you got to be ready to, offer up whatever you can in order to get back from it.
It's transactional. Mm-hmm. It's transactional. And if you're going to like offer to do stuff for them and then you don't follow through, you might as well just consider the relationship dead, because it's these kinds of figures that are worth getting mentorship from, like they're busy people, and they don't really need mentees.
Yeah. They don't need the
don't. No, they don't. That's what they're called.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about this, because I'm excited to dive into the fact that you were the first female broker on $1 Million Listing New York. I watched your season. I watched many of the seasons.
You watched the whole season?
I did, but years ago. It was 2021, right? So I started watching a little bit again to just remind myself. But what was that experience like? Because I think as real estate agents, we have kind of an interesting lens of actually working the real estate gig and then watching reality TV version of it, right? So what was the experience like? And then did you feel any extra pressure stepping into this role, being the only female in the cast?
Well, it was really interesting, just getting started in the role, because of the fact that I was the first female. There's obviously, even just contractually, it was just trying to figure out how to make space for hair and makeup and all of the different pieces that I was gonna need, even for those cutaway interviews, and all of that was obviously like a negotiation, but also something that was kind of the first time that they were really dealing with it. A lot of the time, Ryan, to change scenes, he was able to like take off his tie or something, or like, it's just not the same thing when you're a woman. So I think obviously like there's a big piece of that. And I think in the scheme of what we've seen now with reality TV, with regards to real estate, is honestly like, I was like a tomboy compared to what's really out there now. I was way more low key about what I wanted to do for myself, to be really like on camera and all of that. But the thing that I learned the most from it was that, first of all, I was not really prepared to level up probably the stakes that they needed to see, as far as like drama and in general just being like a little bit more confrontational. I think I was really, really busy trying to kind of like save my face at the same time as being high energy and excited about the appearance, like about being on the show, and obviously like showing my whole world to the world, so to speak. And what I learned the most from the experience was really just this idea of producing your life for the world. And if you want something to be interesting and entertaining in social media, if you have the opportunity to be on reality TV, you do need to really be strategic about how you're thinking of what you're putting out there, because the reality is it is reality, but there's an element of it that you have to be thoughtful about what you're putting out there, because the truth is that the stuff that portrays the best and the most interesting and intriguing in reality TV is something that if you looked at it in real life would seem so over the top that you'd never believe it.
Yeah.
And so it's real. It's just it's like on steroids. It's kind of like how the way I'm talking on a Zoom is never going to be the way I'd really talk to you in real life. You need to, everything needs to be leveled up.
Yeah, everything's amplified. And did you have to do like real scenes? And then would they say to you, I want that, but I need you to hype it up, or I need you to kind of create more energy? Because I feel like sometimes things happen and it's like they like it, but they want like a better take.
Well, the reality is that they're the only people who can see your energy effectively, and how it translates on camera. So obviously, like, there's going to be moments where it's just you just got out of something and you're just so flat for whatever reason, and there's a lot of feedback involved in that. And I think that's an important part of the process, because the truth is you're taking real life and you're putting it out there and so nobody really wants to like break that, what is it, the fourth wall, but the truth is that you need people who have real personalities and are really excited to put that energy into it and kind of be amplified to be something worth watching.
Right. Well, Fredrik with his big kicks, right? His high kicks and everything else, right? They definitely, and I think even Ryan, you definitely saw that, and I think it takes a little bit of time. They had a few seasons ahead of you to start also figuring out kind of how to amplify, right? So you were kind of coming in midstream trying to figure that out, and how to do it as a woman, right? A little bit, being able to show your personality. And, I think that that's not always that easy to do.
Yeah. I mean, they had 8 seasons ahead of me. I had the 9th and that's it. So it was like they had a lot of time. And yeah, it was hard to compete with that, if you're going to call it a competition. I don't think it was a competition, but I think it was super challenging to be a version that was going to be really exciting for TV, when I generally think of myself as a pretty consummate professional and somebody who doesn't have a lot of drama in their life.
Yeah, right. But I liked it. And I'm going to say, I thought you were great. I thought you brought great, realistic, honest energy. And I say that as feeling like our personalities are similar and kind of our level of energy. So, so there's a lot about reality TV that we, the viewers obviously don't see. And you were in the mix. Let's talk about it with these longtime cast members, Ryan, Fredrik, Steve. Is there anything that you learned in working with them? Is there like some great stuff that kind of came out of, that experience?
The thing that I learned that I never expected to realize from the show is I was that person that's like a lot of real estate agents, that my husband's a developer and he always watched $1 Million Listing New York, and he's Italian and he loved, it was playing in the background and he just loved watching the show. And I remember walking past him watching the show, and like, I'm a mother of 3. I have no time to watch television, I'm gonna be totally honest, and it's not my thing. It doesn't give me I'd rather like read a great book or listen to something great. It doesn't do it for me. But I remember walking past, and I always used to kind of scoff at the success that these guys have had, and really assumed that it was just kind of had fallen in their lap from the show. And what blew my mind so much from spending time with them and being on set with them is that, first of all, the filming aspect is a lot of work. It's real, it's reality, the stories are real, but it's still a lot of work, because whatever you're filming that you see for 1 minute, we probably filmed for hours to get those takes, because that's just how it is. And they're trying to distill hours of life into very, very short, very, very, very short snippets. So the work and the time is huge that you put into creating these shows, and then they have to go to work. And there's also the selling piece of it and the keeping up with your network and all of that. And there's a certain amount of business that comes when the show's airing, and then it kind of falls off. And so there was always all the cast members said to me when I got started that it was going to take 3 years to really see the effect of the show. So if you weren't ready to be all in for 3 seasons, it really wasn't even worth it to be on the show. And Tyler was on it for 2. I don't remember the count of the other guys who came and went. But the truth is that I would probably agree with that. And when the time came to get ready for the second season that I was going to be on, I actually was thinking to myself if I actually could hack it, like if I actually could handle another season, wardrobe, just generally getting up in the morning and being excited about doing this, hair, makeup, everything together, in addition to the business that I had created by preparing to be on the show. So those guys, like chapeau, they have worked their butts off.
Mhm.
And the truth is that if anybody wanted to spend as much time as these guys did filming that show, and they had put it towards a YouTube channel or social media, they would probably be even more successful than they are right now, because it is so much time to do that. And a lot of them really do, are really servicing their clients and are really being real brokers offline as well. So it's like, I was the first person to kind of scoff at all of it. And then after I was in it, I thought, in addition, adding on the load that I have as just being a wife and a mother, I'm not sure there's space for this for me. Maybe in the future when my kids are a little bit older, as my kids are now, maybe I could revisit it. But it was something that was, tremendously challenging. And I really was like, wow, these guys, and they were better at conserving their energy. Like, I feel like I was so busy trying to be like high energy, and they
On
would
and ready.
you could see they could just like turn it off and turn it back on, which I thought was amazing. It's something I don't know how to do.
Well, I appreciate so much this kind of lens behind it all, because I will say I was probably a scoffer. I watched it, for fun. Reality TV is a fun thing to kind of have on in the background, as you say. And you sort of have this idea of how hard could it be? And also, I think an idea of, did this really make their business? Where I feel like, exactly what you said, if they've done it long enough, it starts creating some reward. But the reality is they're still running a pretty significant business behind the scenes. So I appreciate kind of that glimpse into it. It sets a different perspective for me, for sure, even.
And to keep up that social media stuff is not for the faint of heart. It's a full-time job.
Yeah, for sure. And as you said, you're also just trying to run and grow your book of business. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I know on and off camera, you work with a lot of high profile clients. You've got celebrities, Fortune 500 executives. Tell me a little bit about the biggest misconception that people might have in working with people in this niche.
Well, there's a couple misconceptions. One of the things that is really important to understand, I think, especially I've found this with several of the really high profile people that I work with, is if you haven't really met the decision maker, it is worth trying to dig deeper into knowing more about who you will be dealing with when the stakes are higher. So in a lot of cases, maybe you don't meet the decision maker or the person who owns the asset, maybe when you're getting, being interviewed for the job of the selling or anything like that. And sometimes then what'll happen is finally you'll get to a high stakes moment where maybe you've got a couple of bids or whatever, and this person will jump into the mix because they effectively own the property or they're the big decision maker. And they're so different than the people that are managing them that you're totally thrown off guard. And this has happened to me multiple times. And what I've realized is it's so important to really, first of all, put in writing your suggestions, put in writing your process, over communicate, formalize your reporting. All of the things that you do for any client at any level needs to be upheld for your clients at that higher level. And the other thing that's really important is not being afraid of them. They do put their pants on just like you do every morning, and they put one foot in front of the other. And if you don't, because I have agents on my team who will be working with a really, really major seller that's like really ultra high net worth or whatever it is, and they will be afraid to message them or to check in with them or to send them market data that we've found. When if it was a price point that was lower price point, or somebody that was not maybe as notorious, they would potentially have no problem reaching out to them. And I think that there's a layer here where, yes, as you serve more and more expensive properties, you get further into the luxury market, you deal with more and more high net worth or, public figures, you need to level up the brand and you need to level up what you're providing to these people. But then in addition to that, you also need to remember that they're just like everybody else. They need that level of communication and they need someone who's ready to get ahead of it instead of you getting too far in your own head, being afraid to reach out and actually have these real conversations.
Yeah, that's huge. I appreciate that because I do think agents get into their own way, even when it's a listing price point that is new to them, right? And they sort of feel like I'm out over my skis or I'm not where I should be. And, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. But then once you get a few of these, because I'm sure it was probably challenging for you at first when you had your first high profile client, right? And I think, but it's like the faster you get there and realize that they're hiring you for your expertise. They might have an expertise in whatever they've done successfully, but that is why they're hiring you. And you kind of have to get your head around it, right? I'm sure you remember your first time.
Yeah, but also, these are partnerships effectively. And one of the top agents that I saw at this conference recently, he was saying that his pitches, he goes on pitches and the first meeting is really just to see if they're real sellers and see if it's the right fit for him. And I really think that we need to think of this more because the more high profile the property, the longer potentially you could end up having it on the market and working with these sellers. And if you haven't gotten clarity around what they want from you to sustain this relationship, if it takes a year or two to sell the home, or if it's a builder and it's a multi-year relationship, you're really not giving yourself enough credit. You're probably setting yourself up in a position that's not the right position to maintain and hold on to the property. And essentially there's a really good chance you won't make any money off of it. So at some point, if you say, I'm going to be, I've set myself up for disaster here by not being transparent enough, by not being forthright enough, by not putting in writing the suggestions I have with the pricing recommendation, with all the different pieces, like I'm just excited to have this opportunity. Like, when is that over? Where you're just excited for the opportunity and you say, this is how I make money. This is how I pay my bills. And other people who know that I'm an expert and are willing to take my expertise should come first, no matter what the price point.
Yep. Yeah.
Because those are the clients I want. People are like, what are your ideal client? I'm like, my ideal client is somebody who actually respects my opinion and wants to work with me and is willing to sign like a year-long exclusive.
Yeah. Great terms, great non-negotiables. I love it. It's great advice. And, I think a lot of agents I know that we are working with here kind of locally and that I coach, many people want to get into kind of that luxury market, wherever that may be for them in their marketplace. What would be advice you'd give to agents who are looking to increase their price point or kind of get into that luxury or higher end market? Any thoughts that you've got?
Well, I had a little thing with Tom Ferry on this a couple of years ago. And one of the main things, because he was asking me the exact same question and it hasn't changed. One of the main things you need to do is you need to read the newspapers that the people that you want to talk to read. Okay. So, and you can, and obviously we know that, you have to pick the newspaper that is, right for what you want, or maybe, the other side of politics is where the people are that you want to be working with. You're going to have to be well versed in that in a non-confrontational way, and you're going to have to put that aside. But really, you have to know how to speak macro. A lot of the people at the luxury level, while they respect your opinion of pricing, and there's a lot of that, they also want to talk to you and hear what you think about what's going on in the larger economy. Because these are not people who just own this property. Ideally, they own other properties that are in other places, or they're largely vested in things like the stock market, the bond market. They have alternative investments. Maybe they have investment properties in other parts of the country. If you can't articulately talk to these buyers and sellers about other things, you're really going to have a hard time sustaining that relationship and getting them to work with you. So that's the number one thing I have to say. The other part of this is you have to go see the property that is the kind of property that you want to be selling. So I have a lot of agents, even at the high end, that will be like, hey, I don't have anybody for this. And it's because of the fact that they're actually genuinely busy and can't get in there. But then there are other agents that say, why would I go see that? I don't have anybody for it. But I'll tell you, The way that it works at the luxury high end is effectively for maybe your buyer, there might be 20 to 30 trades that happened this year that are relevant to them. If you've seen 10 of those properties by going out and seeing those properties at a broker open house or in some form, you can intelligently speak to them, and all of a sudden you are an expert, even if you're not the one that sold it, because you can reach out to that agent and you can say, hey, Susie, I saw that you sold for $500,000 less than the asking price. I saw the property with you on X date. It was amazing. Could you tell me a little bit about what happened? And a lot of the times, if you've built rapport, they're willing to give you a little bit of a story. And then here you are coming into that pitch. Maybe you haven't sold anything in that price point, but you know the story of everything that's happened to those properties. And it gives you that next level of being able to sell, right? So I think that it's kind of like an acting as if you have to be the broker you want to be in 5 years if you want to get there. And a lot of that really has to do with this stuff of really getting out there and owning it. And it's going to be time that will not be immediately profitable in the short term. And you're going to need to set aside that time anyway.
Yeah. It's like doing a research paper. I mean, it's really, you've got to be in the market you want to be in before you're in the market that you want to be in, you know? So I love that. And because I do think that sometimes, you know, clients want to, or not clients, but agents want to take shortcuts, you know? And I think it kind of goes back to taking yourself seriously. And to your point, know where you want to be in 5 years and figure out what are the steps that may not pay off right away that you have to take though to get there. Quick question for you. What is kind of your daily go-to? Like what one or two things, whether it's, you know, that you go to get some of your nuggets, economy based or whatnot? Because I feel like people always want to know, like where are agents finding their info?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, we're in New York City, and The Real Deal is a great publication for us. It picks up a lot of different stuff. The Post also has some great stuff for us because the fact that the Post really is something that you know, for lack of a better, you know, spot, there's a lot of gossip in there. There's a lot of things about what's going on with who. Because remember, real estate's a lot about who. It's not just about where, the who. And then, I mean, I do think everything from the Financial Times headlines to the Wall Street Journal headlines, and like, obviously this is a conservative slant, but I'm not necessarily, you know, explicitly that way, but that's kind of what tends to give me the most visibility into what's going on with the high-end clientele. We also get something called the Olshan Report in New York City, which is above $4 million sales that have traded. That's an important thing to open up every Monday morning. That's a huge one, and looking at those trades. So there's a lot of different places, but I think number one is you have to figure out what your local rag is and what people are reading. And if it's a place where, you know, there isn't a local rag that's got that stuff in it, the way we have the Post, which is effectively a local rag for us, then it's looking at those national publications. My husband loves The Economist, and I do think that The Economist is great because you can tear out a page and put it in your handbag and just read it somewhere and then throw it out, you know, because they're nice short articles. And it's a global perspective, which is helpful because again, we're getting more and more into the high-end market having more of a global perspective.
Yeah. I mean, reading's great, podcasting too. I mean, I do the daily often just because it's an easy, quick, like
and it's very digestible and it's super interesting.
Yeah.
I think they do a really good job, and some of it's really, and I love that because it's a deep dive into one topic.
And it's great at a cocktail party. Yeah, great for a cocktail party, right? All right, so now I want to shift us to a little fun. This is my rapid fire section. And this for you, KJ Kirsten, is reality check. So here we go. First question. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being no change and 10 being life-changing, how much did $1 Million Listing affect your business?
Like 13 or 14.
13 or 14, really? Just the exposure and now people knowing your name wherever you go?
It was also, for me, it was a vote of confidence in me from a third party that really made a big difference for me. I do love all of that. Like my true dream in life is being a personal motivator or a, you know, somebody who's writing self-help, and all of that has always been something I'm super, super passionate about. And I'm also really, really passionate about breaking real estate down into something that's understandable for my generation. I'm an old millennial, and I'm super passionate about that in general. And I feel like it gave me a platform to be able to push these initiatives that I really, really care about. And I think that the world of self-help is a lot more saturated than the world of educating people like me about real estate as an asset class and how to use real estate to build wealth.
Yeah. Love it. Love all of that. How accurately do you feel that the show portrayed you and your business?
I feel like it was pretty accurate. I feel like that's me. I think friends say, I feel like I was like sitting in a living room talking to you when you were doing your cutaway interviews and everything. So if it were to capture me today, I do think I'm a little bit of a different person today than I was then. I'm probably a little bit more shrewd. I probably have a little bit more of an edge. I probably put up with a little bit less, just because of the fact that like I've now been through, 4 years of running a team, and I think nothing will break you down and build you up like running a team.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love that people said that you were authentic, because I liked you on screen for sure. Is there anything you wish you had shown more or less of?
I wish I had shown more of the fact that I am a strong like negotiator and a strong personality. I do think that there was more opportunity for me to be a little bit, feistier with the guys. I think I still came across pretty strong, but I think there was probably more opportunity for that, and that would have been good for me. But it is what it is. I also really wish we hadn't even bothered with those masks, because the problem was it was a period of time where we didn't know if we were going to be kind of canceled by not wearing a mask. But the truth is like we should have we were all so far away from each other. A lot of this stuff was outside. It would have been better to just, go. I think at one point I was wearing like a plastic sheath over my face. I mean, it was tough.
Which cast member surprised you the most in a good way?
Personally, I thought Steve Gold was the one who surprised me the most, because Steve's really an incredible agent, and he really is somebody I respect tremendously and what he's done with his business, and the fact that he has stayed tried and true to working really directly with his clients. And I think that that's something that is really, really awesome. And I like that he is stuck with the craft. Obviously he has a lot of other ventures, which are amazing. But I have a lot of respect for him from that perspective.
And what's something about reality TV that no one could have prepared you for?
I mean, the camera ready stuff and the wardrobe stuff is enough. It's really freaking hard. It's so hard. I'm like 5'4", and I'm a pretty petite person, and dressing for my figure and dressing and just hair and makeup and all of it just was so challenging to just get out the door in the morning and make it to these things and have picked out the outfits and the next thing. And then a lot of that stuff, it's like you'd wear it once and you'd just be like, I guess I should just get rid of this. That was really tough. That was really, really tough. That was the hardest thing for me. That, and obviously like coming up with these open house ideas that are maybe a little bit more than what you would have, necessarily imagined to do for real life, things like that. That was tough stuff. I wish I had that. Maybe I would have hired someone that was a little bit better marketing coordinator if I had known what that was going to look like.
Yeah, I love it. All right, we've got a different rapid fire now. It's called the fast track, because I want to dive into this, because before real estate, you were an all-American race walker. And I don't even know, how does one even get into race walking? But it happened in high school for you. So tell me about how you got into it, and what's the fastest mile you ever walked?
I got into the race walk because I was on the track team, and I was actually focusing on, because the track team is great for people like me who don't have great hand-eye coordination. And so I was focusing on, just like they had me in the 4x800. I was doing some long distance running. I was never fast. I did the discus and the shot put. I was like just not, which is crazy, like someone like me doing those things. And I tried the race walk when I was in, like, I think I was in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th. I think I might have been in 9th grade. I think I was like a freshman. And I think I tried it, and a friend of mine had done it a little bit. And so I tried it, and I was like, just really naturally good. And I had the cardio strength because of doing these other things, because I did cross country and all that stuff. Again, never good at any of it, but just did it for the exercise aspect of it and the camaraderie. And I was just great. And so I did this first race of my race walking career, and they put me in the slowest heat because they didn't know how I was going to be, because it was my first race. And I was like lapping people because I was so good. And so it was just something that I always refer to it when people ask me what the most important thing is about getting into the real estate industry. And I do think you kind of need some beginner's luck of a couple good things to happen to you in the beginning, because otherwise it's such a slog that it really is hard to sustain the excitement around doing it.
I love it. So what was your fastest mile?
My fastest mile was 7 minutes and 14 seconds, which
Oh
was
my
a,
God.
which was the, which was, it was a 1600. It was when I did the nationals. And that was, at the time, it was the seventh fastest of all time, for a high school athlete.
Wow. I mean, I think my best run mile was like 9 minutes. That's
Well,
very
that's the thing with this stuff is you get up at these, you're really going fast.
going fast. Wow, that's impressive. So has this shaped your competitive mindset, having this experience? Do you feel like it helped getting into real estate?
Well, yes, because the thing with being All-American was I won the national. So I was the first in the United States. And it's not a sport that is necessarily in every high school. So it's not something that you can say I would beat out every single, but it was still a significant achievement. And it was something that I had really pushed towards as far as like cardio work and all the things I was doing when I was training for it. And so I do think that that made a huge, huge difference for me. And so I know that if I really put my mind to something, I can really do it. It's the same thing like learning Italian. I didn't know Italian. I moved to Italy during college, thought it was amazing, wanted to learn the language, and went back and learned the language. And now I speak fluent Italian. And it was something that I wanted to do. I conquered it. And I was like, wow, this is, if I put my mind to anything, I can do it.
I love it. Italian, race walking, real estate. It's no problem. So athletes have pre-game rituals. Do you have your go-to routine before you hit or go in for a big pitch on a listing? Any like song or anything?
You know, I probably need more of that. I have been listening to this. A friend of mine recommended to me this guy that, because I do like so much help stuff. And I feel like you always have to keep changing it up because at some point you desensitize to it, you know? And so I started listening to Neville Goddard again, who is one of the OGs. He's like, it's like the world, like the time of like Dale Carnegie, Neville Goddard. We're talking like Milton Erickson, way, way back. And there's like an iTunes version where it's put to music, and the whole concept of it, not to like derail this conversation, is really, visualizing yourself already having this thing, believing in yourself as the prize, and believing in just, instead of wanting and needing, really owning that this is where you're meant to be and where you're meant to serve. And I think in our business, one of the things I do really focus on is genuinely, and I tell my agents this, genuinely, they're lucky to be working with us, because there are so few people who care as much as we do, really, really dialing in on how to get, how to service the client best, leave no stone unturned, truly act out of a genuine care for service to really sell an asset at the highest price in the shortest amount of time, giving genuine, advice, data, all of that. And I really focus on that. So what I've been doing is listening to this. I had a big meeting on Friday that was a big deal for me, and I used that for the meeting. But I love anything that really puts you into that headspace of just being really clear about how you can help, what your services are, and owning that if it's not the right fit, it's also okay, because that's part of the process.
Huge, very valuable. It's the go give mentality, which I love.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Final question, which I am excited to ask, and I know a lot of people are probably curious about, but what's your number one tip for other working moms in real estate who are also feeling that juggle?
The number one thing that changed my life is making sure that I'm able to get up and get out and exercise and come home before anybody else is awake. And I don't care if you're a morning person or not. If you have a family, it's probably the only way you're going to get it done. And so you have to figure that out. The first time I got up for a 6 a.m. class, I think I swore I would never do it again, because I was like, my entire day was so awful. This is terrible. I'm not meant to do this. And then at some point it was just like, this is the only way this is going to happen. So I wake up early, I get up, I meditate, I make herbs and lemon water and like all these different things. And I get up and out for a walk 3 days a week. And then the other days, 3 days a week, I have a trainer and I have the accountability in place. And I think if there's only one thing you can do to pay yourself back and to really get yourself up and out and doing that physical activity, it's so important. And as a reminder, as women, our bone density and our muscle goes down with age. And as much as this is something that's not just aesthetic, this is for your blood sugar, this is for your mood, this is for everything. And you can't ignore it. And it makes such a difference. And I really think that piece just gets me out of my head. It gets me to such a good place. A lot of the time I either listen to something during that walk or I make phone calls to Europe. But anything you can do to take care of yourself first before you are dealing with caring for others is really, really important. And it's like, I think people are like, it's an easy thing to scoff about and say, well, you have childcare, you have this, but honestly, it's something I invested in even when the cost of investing in it was more than I made, because it's gotten to the point where it's like a non-negotiable for me.
I love that. I love that. It's such a great way for us to wrap. And it's, a saying that my sister-in-law and I always say is you've got to put your oxygen mask on first in order to help everybody else. So, well, Kirsten, KJ, thank you so much for spending time with me. It was so great to just get to know you, hear about your business, learn about the behind the scenes secrets of $1 Million Listing New York, and just get to know you. Really appreciated it. So thanks so much for your time. And thanks to everybody else for tuning in to Corr Values. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of Corr Values. If you loved the episode, be sure to hit the follow button so you don't miss the next one. You can also connect with me on Instagram and LinkedIn for more insights on all things real estate and real life. And always, as a friendly reminder, you got this.